a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a ride.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly cool episode, guys, Ronnie and Philip Kinsella join me to blow our minds with these fascinating theories about what UFOs are, what the contact phenomena is doing and interacting with humanity, what our response and interface is with it. Of course, guys, all the ways to find them located down in the show notes. All the other ways to find us and everything else located down there too, which we will talk about after the episode. But for right now, let's get to this incredibly cool conversation, guys, with Ronald and Philip Kinsella.
Don't you worry, we got plenty.
Ronnie and Philip Kinsella joining us once again, boys. How are you both?
Very well, thank you, Brandon. And it's an honor to come back on your amazing show again. Really honored. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And I can't remember the last time I was on. It's been quite a few times, but it's fabulous to be here.
Yeah, you each came on the first year that I was doing this independently, one right after each other, and then you both came on last year, and then now you're both here together, and we have something exciting for the Expansive Insiders that we're not ready to talk about yet, but it will be happening soon. And we were just discussing here, gentlemen, that we all have just nothing but amazing things to look forward to, which is wonderful. Philip, you've got a couple new books happening. Ronnie, you got things in the pipes. You always have stuff working on, and you guys are always just creating constantly and investigating the hell out of this thing. And y'all both just blow my mind. You both hold a very, very special place in my heart and the heart of the audience. You two are some of the most requested guests that we've got. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much. And let's, just for the audience that doesn't know you, Philip, introduce yourself. Ronnie, we'll let you do that afterwards, and just tell us what you're working on.
Yes, my Philip Kinsella, and I'm from England, and I've just finished a book that is due to be released later this year called Terrestrial Trespassers, and I'm working on a few other projects on ufology and, of course, the abduction hypothesis.
I am Ronald, or Ronnie, as I prefer, from the UK, evidently, but I'm actually working on several books at the moment. One science fiction. One to do with UFOs, of Philip Mantle, but one science fiction, the future, and it's not looking bright. It's not orange. So
a dystopian future novel. Okay, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Do we have space involved, or is it all terrestrial based?
You
don't want to give it away? Okay.
No,
all right, we
not
won't
really.
Give it away.
I know it's been done to death, but this has a little bit of a twist in there. So
yeah. Not by you. It hadn't been done by you. So I'm very much looking forward to it. Well, gentlemen, super, like I said, always amazing things to look forward to. So let's just jump right into this thing here. With your next work that you're very excited to tell us about, Philip, what's going on with that? What does it have to do with?
Yes, the new book that will be released through Philip Mantle's Flying Disc Press deals with the abduction phenomena and the greys, and also highlighting the levels of high strangeness that's connected with cryptids within cryptozoology, especially the dogman, and a little bit on the Sasquatch, and trying to formulate an understanding that the phenomena seems to be connected on multiple levels of reality, and just drawing attention, I think, to not only what the greys could represent, because they're the most famous entities within ufology, so much so, they're linked in every part of the media cartel where science fiction is concerned, or ufology, but I wanted to get to the truth and basis of what they are, and that was all initiated through the onslaught of an abduction, as they call it, that occurred to be in 1989. I'm not going to go into that because we covered that before, but it was something that made me think about how these entities, these beings, these interdimensionals, ultra-terrestrials, whatever you want to call them, because we're still not sure how they're able to bring someone into their filled frequency of reality. So there was two parts, one physical, one not physical, and that's something that kind of like hooked me. And you'll find this with many ufologists and people that are interested in UFOs, where they've had an encounter with this singularity, and it changes them. And it's almost like a drug. You need more of it. You need to find out more about it, like in here. So that's primarily what this new book covers, and taking also into account several theoretical ideas, because, as you know, Brandon, both Ronald and myself, like many others, will not put ourselves in a corner. We're open to all forms of speculation, because we still have a blank page. The page is being filled with theoretical models. Brilliant. But we have to be open to any and every form of speculation that other researchers bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add on that. I mean, certain people believe they come from time. They might quite be right. You know, I've tried to look at this, as we all have, you know, off-world, interdimensional time travelers, from Antarctica, under the water. You know, it's like a big jigsaw puzzle. And I think the best way to gain results is to actually analyze the abductions themselves. Because when we looked into that, the alleged aliens, I'll call them that, because we don't know what they are. They're something different. We know they're real. Whatever they're doing, they're playing a mix and match game. It's like some people, they'll express their concerns for world peace. Others, they'll show them the destruction of Earth. So to my mind, I wonder if there's any pattern behind that, because they seem to be sending off mixed signals to these individuals. And if you notice, each encounter more or less is always different. You know, people see different things. They can play with your mind. They're like master magicians in a way that, certainly in my case, I enjoyed that chat we had, that wonderful chat we had about the doctors, the alleged doctors that took me up in the Cheshire Cat. I now believe that they were using smoke and mirrors. They were plucking things from my mind to project these things of authority, of not, I wouldn't say domination, but it certainly was authority. It was a kindly authority, but enough to keep me pinned to where I was. So these things have a very extraordinary way of messing with your mind. And also, isn't it funny also the fact that, you know, in the past, we had a lot of cases of people seeing them arriving from, I'm not saying tongue-in-cheek here, but flying saucers. And the triangle, they always were associated with them. But now we're finding that they're arriving through walls, through doors. They just materialize before the bed. So, you know, is this some kind of trick they're playing on us? Another trick to mask what they really are? What is behind all that? Philip mentioned the Greys. Now, I've always maintained, I could be wrong, this is only theory for all your wonderful guests out there, it's only a theory, they are not the real McCoy. They're not what they appear to be. There's something behind all of them. There's something behind all this. I'm just sure of it.
Well, I have different ideas about that, and it's good that we have different thoughts about the Greys as they're known. One of the most interesting and telltale signs is, where are the aliens? I've argued this in the new project. Where exactly are they? Where are they? Where are they hiding out? And of course, we have all of these multiple levels of experiences, from the Calvin Parker robotic type clawed-handed entities to the Greys, to going back into the 1950s with the colorful characters of humanoids or love and light. I think it's very interesting that, talking very briefly about Calvin Parker, the abduction occurred near a river. And of course, the machines, or the robots as they thought that they were, seemed aquatic in nature, or whether or not the phenomena seems to morph around the environment as it comes in, we don't know. And this is something that has been addressed, because, you know, with regards to the famous abductions with the Greys, when someone is taken in the early 1960s, taking another example very quickly here, Betty and Barney Hill case in 1961, New Hampshire. Of course, we're all connected with Kathleen Martin, the wonderful Kathleen Martin, the researcher, the niece of them. What's interesting is this, a few telltale signs with regards to that. They had what they termed a physical encounter with a UFO that landed, and they were taken on board. And of course, the memories came through as dream state. Now, what's interesting is when the medical examination was being performed on Betty and Barney separately, one of the examiners came in to try to remove Betty's teeth, and she had to explain to the entities that her husband had false teeth. Now, was this the first time that these Greys had encountered a human with, false teeth? And had they come all the way from Zeta Reticuli just to abduct them? These are the questions that we need to be looking deeper into, because I doubt very much that is exactly what happened. I'm not saying that they didn't do or say where they come from, but I think that they're much closer than we realize. So in each case, there are certain telltale signs that's like, hang on just a minute. So this is the first time that these so-called Greys had discovered a male that has false teeth. I mean, you've got to laugh about it, right? And they were puzzled by it, by our human physiology. So it's these kind of things that we're looking at. And of course, the experience then seemed to appear in dream state, like many abductions, that the aliens themselves, if we use the word alien, or whatever they are, whatever they represent, are able to screen themselves within the deep levels of the subconscious mind. So we need to find out whether or not it's actually a real physical thing that's happening, or that these aliens are operating and coming through to our human consciousness, and this is how that they gain access to memory.
It is physical. Because I'll explain why. Because the subjects I had, I interrogated. Not like you would think, but we had a good discussion. One of them was a very respected man from Newfoundland, and he saw the Greys, and they came through a portal through his wall and floated towards him, and they actually took some material from him in tubes. He didn't know it was blood or what. So there is physical interaction.
Oh, yes.
He could feel them.
Yep.
So I think the reason why you're saying that it's ethereal afterwards is because after that moment, they're able to scramble the mind. They're able to actually make it appear as though it's elusive.
Yeah.
It's smoke and mirrors.
But yeah, may I just point out very quickly, when I say ethereal, I'm not talking about something that's wispy. The signals to your mobile phone are real. They are the phone. They come through the ether. And if you're matched by that vibration, you'll be in that realm. And of course, those signals connect to a physical device. Just because people think that we're talking about something that's interdimensional and has some kind of ethereal quality to it, it obviously comes in and matches this vibration into our level of reality so that interaction can then be made possible.
Well, yes, if it's from another dimension, it will have to become three-dimensional to actually interact with us. You know, it's going to have to be corporeal.
This is why I've had some people having a go at me saying, hang on a minute, UFOs are physical and the aliens are physical. I understand that.
Maybe.
But there is a level or a principle of how that model or construction comes into our reality. As we take, the space shuttle out, we have to adapt that in the old days of when they were around to the adverse conditions of space. It had to be designed in order to traverse through the stratosphere and, of course, the radiation levels. So, this is what I'm talking about in terms of like perhaps the technical applications or truly bizarre scientific levels that this phenomena needs to take on board in order to get here, because they come in and they go out. And my question, where are the aliens?
Well, the point is that I've, in a new book I'm working on for the lovely Philip Mantle, is the fact that I don't think they're coming from outer space at all. I don't think that's a romantic notion that we were fed. In fact, I did state in an earlier book that was published that is quite feasible, that it is part of us. We are part of it. It is here. Not in the terms we think, perhaps in a parallel world, or it's very close by, something that is ancient and very patient. The thing that eluded me to the whole subject of UFOs is that in the 1950s and 60s, we saw the flair, the fashion, the in vogue of flying saucers. Kenneth Arnold coined the phrase for it, didn't it? Flying saucer. I believe it was him.
Yeah, it was written about in a newspaper. A newspaper person quoted him as, because he said that they skipped like saucers over a water.
That's right.
And so the journalist said flying saucers.
Flying
that's
saucer.
what he put in. Yeah.
But we're seeing them change their kind of structure, their composition, they're triangular, and then we run into the arguments of this is back engineered military. There are thousands of species of aliens, but I'm not so sure. I think we are being toyed with on a major scale.
So many things, and I love both of you. I love both of your points of view. I think that all of this is absolutely plausible together. I think we're all getting glimpses of something that reveals itself to us independently in ways just by researching it. Whether we've had direct contact with it or not, there's still a variety of options, and a variety of berry bushes that we pick from, each of us. And this is why these conversations are great, because we can all kind of come to each other, in this berry picking metaphor and show each other the baskets. We're like, dude, check this out. Here's kind of what I've collected. It's over there. This is what I saw. This is the combination I came up with. One of the things, because there's a few things I wanted to talk about within all of that, guys. Absolutely brilliant. I love this. I love this. Okay. So what about the vibes of the abductee? This is something that I hope is in MUFON questioning moving forward, or that any contactee gets questioned about this, because in, let's say, just a medical case, for instance, if somebody's going to determine your medical health for something, hopefully they're asking you a myriad of questions, not just like, where does it hurt? Does it hurt when I do this? What's your disposition? Like, where are you at in life? Are you going through a heavy divorce? Did you just lose a family member? Did you just lose a dog? Are you going through a stressful time at work right now? Are you trying to get pregnant and it's been challenging? Are you having issues in your relationship? These things, I think, can absolutely affect the way that each of us independently interface with anything in our lives. So why wouldn't it also affect the way that we perceived something like an interaction with the phenomena? Perhaps somebody has an awesome time one time and a shitty time the next. And again, this could just all be like, let's say you go to a concert and see a band. Maybe they're having a bad night and they just didn't play well, but the next time you see them, they were awesome. It doesn't mean that you're not going to go see them ever again. It just means that there was a vibe component associated with it, to where the experience is dictated based on your disposition, like your vibe.
Yes.
So this is the thing about the abductee cases as well. Now, there's another thing interesting back to the Betty and Barney Hill case. I'm glad you brought it up. Males and females seem to be perceived as threats or non-threatening from these entities. I've used this example before. Betty was walked on up a ramp, she said, talking to an alien like they were old friends, just hanging out, extraterrestrial, whatever. We use that word for simplicity of conversation. But Barney was knocked out, unconscious, and drug on, sort of, Pascagoula style, right? Where they were incapacitated and then drug on, because the males pose a threat, which just to what you guys were saying about the fallibility of these things, this is also something I wanted to come ask. The fallibility of them is also so fascinating, because just like y'all, we have an assumption that, man, we hope they have their shit together on a certain level if they're scooping us up and doing a bunch of instrumentation on us, just like Kodiak bears in the wild hope that the research team that came out to tag them and to mark them and take samples, for whatever reason that research team is doing research, they hope they're just as skilled and good at their jobs as well. But let's say that you go out and nobody was around. Everybody's on Christmas vacation, but we got to get these tags in before the end of the year. And you take a bunch of research students that really don't know what they're doing, or perhaps they're learning, and you give them the opportunity to learn. So there's a bit of trauma involved in that, because their learning curve is necessary, but they're learning on you. And you'd hope that they just, again, have your shit together, or just knock you out so they can do whatever they need to and bungle it. Have your mulligans, but don't do it where it terrifies you. But again, all of it probably based on the vibe. Like, if you are a vibrational match to a shitty interaction with aliens, you're going to maybe attract the ones that aren't as skilled. And that's just the way that it plays out. But again, if you're like super on it, but even that, I mean, I don't know if it's that necessarily pingy, but I feel like, bringing it into the conversation is a lot of fun, And the other thing to the portals thing, and rather, aliens need that or not, that's a very interesting part of this as well, because, like, let's say UFOs, like y'all have talked about, have changed in appearance over time, and we've noted this. Back in Viking days, they were Viking wooden ships looking in the sky, but they could fly, and so there was like a connection between what was cognitively available for them on ocean, but they couldn't make it fly. So that was where the funky, freaky, woo-woo disconnect came in, and that's why it was incredible. And just like you guys said, through the 30s, 40s, 50s, they change, and they've even changed now. Now they're Tic Tacs and pyramids and glowing orbs all over like really interesting, more anamorphic shapes rather than the solid Art Deco sort of dope saucers, that we want to see, like this damn thing. Those kind of things. So perhaps the saucer itself is simply so that we don't freak out from portals opening in the sky and humanoid people walking around. Like maybe we can conceptualize more of a glowing ball or a wooden ship from a Viking perspective or a saucer than we could just whatever it looks like when they're not in that thing. Like maybe the UFO doesn't have anything to do with it. It's sort of just for us, you know what I mean? So we don't freak out as much.
I think they have to stand out. That's what they're doing. I mean, and they're always different. They always look slightly different. They have to look different. You can't have Lord Voldemort walking through the wall, and you can't have Scooby-Doo. So they've got to look something just outside the border of normality. I mean, you look at the trolls of the past, the goblins. I would associate the Greys to be kind of akin to goblins in a funny sort of way,
It's an interesting.
It's got to just be a little bit different, and also something that we can latch onto so that we will tell someone that we've seen them. Because if someone says Lord Voldemort, they've seen them, they won't believe them. If they've seen Scooby-Doo walking through the wall, they won't believe them. But if they see an alien, ironically now, something like one of them, they will stand up and take note now, because it is just slightly outside the norm, just as the UFOs you described are as well.
I think that not only has the appearance of the UFOs changed, but also the abduction, the way it's done. Now, in the 1950s, there was contact or alleged contact. I'm not dismissing this, with loving humanoids on a very physical level or grey beings. There was a lot of physical activity that was occurring. Now, the abduction phenomena seems to have upped its program in the way of how they take someone. Is this because we as a human species have become wise to the fact that we have new technology and can catch it very quickly? Remember that these entities are able to disable someone very quickly as they come into this reality. So I myself, perhaps many other researchers, you like your good self, have noticed that there's been a change in the patterns of how this happens. And even to the point where one lady was going through these abductions. And Philip Mantle brought this to my attention, and the mother watched this, but all she could see was her daughter reacting as though she was being abducted. But to the girl, she was actually being abducted. So
did the girl, I apologize, now I gotta ask. So did the girl, from her perspective, get taken anywhere, or was she just being operated on in
she was
bed?
exactly where she was, in the bed. And she was going through the whole motions of distress and everything. And of course, to her, there was an actual abduction with aliens occurring. Now, we have to be a little bit open-minded here. It could be that the phenomena itself is coming in on a now even more bizarre level of interaction with individuals. We have to ask ourselves the question as to how people are taken through solid matter.
The point is that, yes, before you finish that, you're saying it was invisible to the witness.
But it's possible that this intelligence or this force, whatever you want to call it, is able to temporarily override the entire framework of the biological body. And as I've said before, we are the element, to my mind, of two parts, the spiritual part and the physical biological part. No different from your mobile phone physical hardware and the software that you can't see, which carries information. That is the phone, as we send out information through to us. And it's interesting, Brandon, what you said, and I like that about what we're sending out. Perhaps we ourselves inwardly are sending out signals to determine what kind of intelligence is connected or attracted to us.
Which leads to Ronnie's point that it is us, and I want to talk about this, but please, Ronnie, go ahead.
Yeah, they want to be seen. It doesn't matter you're saying about invisible or not. Perhaps so. If they're so advanced, they can shield themselves.
Yeah.
They can hide. They don't want to. They want to be seen. That is key.
I agree.
This force wishes to be seen. It has to be seen. The doctors, even with me, they used a Cheshire cat, a weak kind of example, so that when I go and see a psychologist, I'll say, well, I've seen this Cheshire cat. Oh, you're just dreaming. It's poor. It's lame. These abductees who have these experiences with these alleged greys, they are awake seeing these things performing numerous kinds of operations on them, and their wives or their husbands, they can't be woken up.
They're not.
But one of them has to see them. Not always everyone. It's always one. So that is key. And it wasn't me, someone suggested something very interesting about the UFOs. Why do they need lights? So it's like we're like a moth to a flame. We are attracted to them. We must see them. That is key. For whatever reason, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's possible that you're correct, Brandon. This has been spoken about before, about the secretion of energy within the human biosphere, and we all resonate on certain frequencies. In fact, our organs do. I think this may be the way forward in terms of the future medical, of how the medical profession will be able to bring a diseased organ back up to its correct level of vibration without using any form of surgery.
That's amazing.
But I think, it's possible, like Star Trek. But I think that you're right. I think that, like attracts like. But there are connections with individuals that this same force seems to come in through childhood and then carries it forward. Starts off as being very friendly and very nice, and then becomes more severe within their exploitation of the individual, whether it be genetic material or memory, whatever. So, I mean, I know that, these cases are very highly structured and very highly complex in terms of what these beings are. And we have to also consider that we're not just dealing with one species. Are we dealing with one of the same that changes faces, or are we dealing with a multitude of different entities?
Well, I suggested that, didn't I? And something being actually, is this one of the same, but wearing so many different guises. I think Jacques Vallée did actually come out with that.
Yes, he did.
He actually suggested that himself. But the thing is that they always want you to see them. And also, the reason why they know us so well, is it because, one, it's only a hypothesis, and I did mention this in my book, I think. If when they chip you, will it be terrifying to know that they can see everything you see and hear everything you hear? So it's like the invaders, not in a negative approach from their program. I'm not saying they're negative, but I thought, well, that chip, if they do put that in, which they do, that's doing more than what just a tracker. They're probably watching everything you're watching when you get up to have your breakfast, to going to work, and listening to everything. Now, imagine the power of that kind of surveillance. No wonder they know us by names when they take us up. No wonder they know us very well because of these chips, these implants that they're putting in people, or these crystals, or whatever they do use.
Yeah, same thing as like a hawk. It wakes up from a daze one day like, oh man, I saw a bunch of people running toward me and I just fell asleep, and now I'm woken up and I have a camera on my back. What the hell is this? And then now we go to a webcam, every morning people are sitting there having their coffee watching this hawk fly around, and we're along for the ride. Have you seen these?
Yes,
right?
I have.
So
we have.
It's very analogous to the way that human beings track animals in the wild. Now, what if we introduce at this point something that was brought to my attention through a really good friend of mine at a conversation I had not too long ago on the show about that perhaps the reason, okay, let me take back one step. One of the issues I've had with this is I love the title of your book, by the way, Philip, Terrestrial Trespass. Ronnie, your digital demon. It sort of has these trespass demon. You think of Bud Hopkins as intruders. He also, calls them kidnappers. Like there's this sort of lack of respect of sovereignty that goes about with the contact phenomena as we view it from our perspective. So this is something very tricky for me to kind of reconcile because I'm huge into the sovereignty idea. I really put this forward beyond everything, that you have final control and say over anything that happens to you in this realm or another. But if you look at the contact phenomena in the way that I would from a certain perspective, we all would at certain cases from certain people's vantage points, view it as an abduction. And that's why there's two different phrasings for it, right? Contact,
yes.
You wanted, you're out there with a laser meditating for them. The other one is abduction, right? It's not supposed to be something that you're willingly participating in. And so this has bothered me. Where we are now with, again, the conversation that I had recently was that perhaps the reason that it's okay that they do that is because they are you. There is nothing different in that lineage of extraterrestrials perceptively, that they are no different than you. Perhaps you are one of their hybrid children, and the piece of their soul, their oversoul, is in you. And you, Ronnie, just like you said with the implants, yes, they are monitoring everything you're doing here, but you're an agent of theirs. You're on their, air quotes, team. You're one of them. You are no different than them. The only difference is your essence is riding around in a human suit rather than what it normally is, which is an alien suit, because what both of you said earlier about it needing to manifest in a physical 3D place. So if these things are operating on multiple levels, what if, in quantum physics, kind of, we're getting glimpses of this, that quantum physics tells us that we're in pieces of everything, that nothing is separate at a source. It's like we have also been talking about here, simply a vibration. So what if Earth, the 3D realm, is simply a vibration, but your soul can travel through any of it. You simply need a vehicle in one of those bands of vibration, any of those, to walk around in. Just like we need a submarine to go to the bottom of the ocean. It's not meant for us, but we have something that we can do to go down there and take a look around. Yeah. Maybe it's something like that, which would, again, it seems in my mind a little bit like a consideration, like, oh yeah, you can do anything you want to me because you're me too. And I'm convinced of that now. So I still am not 100% on board with this idea, just to be incredibly candid here. But if I look at it that way, I could see a bigger picture element to this, and I at least have the hubris within myself to say that I don't see things on a big enough level to know if that's true or not, and that there absolutely are things here I have no idea what the hell's going on, and I can't see it from that vantage point. So there's a trusting of the process, but there's also a statement of autonomy that I'm very clear with. So it's sort of this T-shirt my wife got me: "Do no harm, but take no shit." You know what I mean? And that's my vibe.
I think that
I agree with you.
I also mentioned in terrestrial trespassers, of course, the phenomena changes, the singularity changes you, of course, on a more psychic level. And I did address and have addressed in the book about the possibility of the process of incarnation, that perhaps that we were part of them and they are coming back to check up on us.
Yes.
And that thought occurred to me on our very last experience on the 9th of April 2016 at 11:15 p.m. at night, with the 3 massive UFOs that descended over us here that were tracked, now we know, from the Isles of Scilly. And I wondered, because I think you're right. I think that we're contained within our construction of thinking. And of course, when I was started back in 1996, was credited with this soul issue, the conscious issue, the interaction of the greys and how it seemed to mirror the near-death experience, but they were 2 separate, experiences entirely. That there could be a major soul issue, that we have, a lot of ufologists believe that it's nuts and bolts construct, and they will tell you that. I cannot agree with that. I will agree to say, to some degree, perhaps this phenomenon is able to morph itself, perhaps even utilizing our materials here to construct itself as it comes into our reality.
Like ectoplasm in a medium.
Right.
And it needs something here to form. Yeah.
That's right. And I've addressed this as well within the book on a soul level. And you're correct, what if that is what we are, and it is coming back to see us in this our time, even though they are from no time, and that we are ostensibly on a soul level explorers. And I've always had this romanticized idea. People say, well, why are we here? What is the point of being born and living? And I think that that we're recording experiences that perhaps when we pass over to the other side, that amalgamates with the source, the core source of all creation, rather like someone creating a film and then another, and you have hundreds upon thousands upon billions of films that can all be experienced. But get this, what if you can actually live and experience within those films of reality? And I think that on the core essence, when we talk about life after death, or the clinical, very structured cases of NDE, not the religious interpretations, but how it's humanized. But then, of course, people that cross over, they don't feel that they have a body, but they are consciously aware.
Yeah.
So we always humanize everything to a degree that it has to be only human. So I totally take on board and accept wholeheartedly, also as a part of the paradigm of what we're discussing here with regards to soul, incarnation, and issues that perhaps go beyond this physical level of reality. Oh, absolutely.
There's
Hell
a
yeah.
problem.
Hell yeah.
As with everything, there's always a problem. There's a plus and a minus.
There's an opportunity in disguise. I don't believe in problems, my friend. Go ahead.
Okay, the cattle mutilations.
Okay.
You see, we take on different aspects of this. And I argued with Philip, so we're moving towards the negative side. And it's actual factual. You know, we've learned from the pioneering researchers, just as Linda Monthowe, who is an authority on it, bless her. And this is a factor. So it throws the whole thing into question when we're looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly. I did suggest, is it quite possible that, you know, when they discover these carcasses lying there, when they've obviously been beamed up and dropped, why do they drop the carcass? Because they could be removed easily. If they're so advanced, they can just neutralize it, vaporize it. And also, I wondered, I might be wrong, and I don't wish to offend any of the researchers out there. I don't wish to offend anyone. It's only an idea. I could well be wrong, but you know, we find out bits and pieces cut from them, the eyes, the tongue, and all the other bits, the sensitive areas. What if that in itself is a distraction? One thing that's always removed is the blood. It's the blood. And cow blood is kind of compatible with human. We can eat, you know, beef and all that. It's kind of interactive. We can digest it. I kept thinking, what if these things were making hybrids, and instead of feeding them food and going through all that trauma, they've made them as kind of vampires. I know it sounds ridiculous,
No,
but
it
they
doesn't.
feed them this
No, it doesn't.
this blood.
Are
To keep it
are
going.
you talking about
Think about-
people in Parliament?
I know it sounds ridiculous, but my mind
It doesn't.
goes and
No.
goes and goes and goes.
Let's go and let's have fun with that, because you know me, man. You know what we do with this. Okay, so what if that is the case? Now, there's another thing I want to bring into this that I had a guest on recently, Chaz of the Dead. I love this guy. You guys have got to get him on Twin Souls. Brilliant. I'm going to talk about a couple things he talked about on there because they're so cool and revolutionary and in this conversation that we're having that I'd love for you guys to take them and go with them. What we were talking about on that episode was this dude has these radical views about how the UFO phenomena also mirrors with the natural phenomena. And there are so many different varieties and ways to look at all of this stuff. So one of the interesting things he talked about on there was bees, like natural bees and this cavity structure effect. Have you guys ever heard of the cavity structure effect?
No.
Yeah, so basically the idea goes is that bees, naturally, honeybees specifically, their wings are too small for their body to achieve flight. But there is something to do with their thorax. There's some resonance chamber in there, the cavity structure effect, that makes them lighter or appear to be lighter or use less energy. Like bees, for instance, have an economy mode that whenever they're carrying pollen, for some reason, they're using less energy and appear to be lighter. And so, you know, he was connecting bees with the UFO phenomena. We were also talking about a couple of things to where there was this guy who took wings of an insect here. He noticed a certain pattern, this Russian biologist, and he basically took these things under a microscope. He started to look at them, and whenever he dropped them on the slide, they hovered for a minute and then laid down. And he thought it was just static electricity, no big deal. He did it with several of them. Every single one of them hovered for a moment and then dropped, and it was not static electricity. So what he did was he took a few of these and sewed them together in a specific box type pattern. And then he had these just like laying over there, and when he would hit it, it would fly up into the corner of his room, slowly kind of float down and hover as it came down and then rest. So what he did was he put a bunch of these little things that he made a ton of them, and then put them under a pallet, like a platform. And then this squatting Russian scientist guy just squatted over this thing, and he could fly this thing around. Now, what's really interesting about it was all found from here. There was nothing electronic about it. There was no charge going to it. There was no centrifuge with mercury spinning around. There was no sound oscillation, even though we hear of that being a necessary component or a component in some of these things, which, Ronnie, I'm not against. Again, that all of this is like a lie and a deception, and they tell you things and then they appear this way and then it moves on. Now, something also to all of that stuff, to the blood stuff that we were talking about here is, let me finish on the Brevnikov thing. So whenever he would fly this thing, people looking up from underneath didn't see a Russian man squatting on a pallet with bug wing things attached to the bottom of it. They saw shapes, geometric patterns, sacred geometry, UFOs, cigar shapes, spheres of light. He appeared differently to people as he flew over them, no matter what they were. Like, so again, their vibe sort of depends on it. And that's something I wanted to ask you about. Okay, so to the bloodsuckers real quick. Chaz also brought up that there was an entity that local indigenous tribes, I believe in the Amazon, reported, but I believe there are a couple of little cases of these, where they were very aware of a creature that would manifest in front, strangulate, mimic exactly what we find and Linda Moulton Howell has found in the cow mutilation phenomena, and all the blood strangulated out. And so for the same reason. So maybe it's like you said, Ronnie, a distraction, but also I love, by the way, this vampire thing. So we're going to get there. I'm just saying that perhaps it also, Philip, maybe to your cryptid thing, could be in that vein as well. It could be just a cryptid that's crazy and that comes out and does its thing and the locals know about it. And we don't live down there because those things are there. That's why our cities are somewhere else, maybe. Now, to the blood part of this, it's very interesting if they are coming down and sucking blood out of bovine blood, because then maybe, yes, it is something that they can feed humans. Maybe cows are a lot easier. They are here. They're a lot easier to reproduce than humans. Then maybe they're more of a sustainable food source than humans are to something that eats humans. You know what I mean? Maybe there's some sort of blood thing going on there to where, like you said, it's some sort of sustenance element that they can either mix it or simply make them like, hey, you survive on this now. That's your thing. Now, even wilder than that, even wilder than that, what if this is all some sort of huge hybridization program for the next wave of sort of a sweep of vampire people that come down here and take all of us muggles out. And now the new hybrids are vampires. And now there's plenty of cows and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. It could be possible that perhaps we are at the end of our line as a human species. Perhaps the human experiment has failed.
Yeah.
And that these alternative intelligences are coming in to create a new species, a new genus that is able to exist beyond our understanding of the universe. Perhaps trying to collate all of the memories and everything that is located here. This is another area we can play with, because, you know, the way that we as a human species are, and most people don't like the truth, but we're not a nice species. We're warmongering. I'm not talking about a lot of people. A lot of people are good people. They're lovely people, but those in charge forever are control and domination and subjugation. And with free will, it makes us dangerous.
So, stepping stone to evolution you're talking about.
It could be that these alternative intelligences are creating a new genus. And if we go back into our origins, you'll find that within not only the Sumerian and Akkadian texts, but there was talk of us being engineered. And I'm not talking about the Greys here, but perhaps another species of extraterrestrials that we termed as gods.
Yeah, like Anunnaki.
And of course, we came along, and then of course now things have got out of hand. I'm not saying being all doom and gloom and saying that the earth is going to die, but it could be a safety valve for them, like a Noah's Ark for them, to take what is here and project it somewhere else.
Totally.
Who knows? We have to be open to that speculation.
I did state about the Noah's Ark hypothesis that if they were coming from the future and perhaps they were coming back to try and salvage some kind of DNA, they wouldn't pick this time, because we've already discussed this, haven't we, Brandon, before, that respectfully they would understand that this era we're quite tainted with a lot of things. They would pick a point in time when we're medically sound. I'm not saying they're not coming from the future. It's quite possible, but I don't think that would be the reason for this.
What if they're getting energetic samples of DNA? So perhaps the Earth resonates at this 7.34 hertz, something like that, but it has a resonant frequency, but it also changes and is changing. So, you know, we change our resonant frequency as humans change. So as this occurs, perhaps there's a stamp on our DNA that has sort of a energetic component to it that's very signature, that's very necessary. You hear this stuff, and it's horrible, about adrenalized blood, meaning that blood that's scared tastes better to whoever the hell is doing stuff with that. But the point is that you can, the state a being is in, just like what we talked about earlier with the disposition of a contactee, has a lot to do with what that DNA and that blood and everything does. It almost gets to a sweetening point or an adrenalized point, but I mean, to the right entity, that may taste the best. You know, they may prefer that, like cooking their meat first, right? Rather than eating it raw, I prefer my steak cooked. Well, for them, maybe they prefer this type of blood, this energy stamp of blood. You know what I mean? Because who knows? Like we put this on us. And Ronnie, you said something earlier, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think it's the indifferent. I think good, bad, and ugly are projections of us. I don't think it cares at all. I don't think it has a emotional investment in what we feel about it. I think that it carries out its business no matter what, just like we do to that Kodiak bear whenever we go scoop it up. No matter what the research team's capabilities are, that job needs to be done. And it seems that, like I said, there's an indifference to this now. Some people say that they feel that they are protected and visited and looked over by these things, which again, Jane Goodall's monkeys would probably say the same thing. They're visited by the same sweet lady that doesn't trank them. She doesn't hurt them, but it's again another human being, you know, and those monkeys and gorillas didn't really have anything to do. Maybe their vibe, again, like attracts like. So they attracted Jane Goodall rather than the ones down the road that attracted the poachers. It's an interesting energetic game, and it seems that so many options and energies are here. And then now you add the UFO component to this, right? If this was just a terrestrial type thing and this phenomena is recognized, which it is, then that alone is miraculous enough. But damn, now we're talking Sasquatch, now we're talking all kinds of stuff. So let me ask you one more thing, Philip. I want to hear what you say. Okay. What if, Ronnie, this comes back to something you were saying earlier. What if it, what if it, like I said, is sort of more of a vibe thing, but really what you see has to do with what your mind is willing to accept. So let's say this. Yes. Let's say that it's not those things putting a screen memory in you. It's you protecting your own self by putting up basically like a mental guard against what you're seeing because it's so traumatic that you can't face it. And maybe built in every creature here, especially humans, whenever a vibration of that phenomena comes in contact with you, there's an automatic response from you, just like a fight or flight. It's a screen and glean kind of a thing, maybe. And basically your mind will go, whoop, it's not that dangerous. Just don't freak out. But it is something crazy. And maybe they don't look like Greys or Bigfoot or reptilians or anything like that at all. Maybe that's just what our mind says. Okay, this is the best I can do for you. This is what they look like, but we're not going to show you what they really look like because you'd have a heart attack and die. You know what I mean? For our sanity.
It reminds me of...
Which would be why it switches so much, right?
Yeah,
why it's so different.
Point.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Arthur C. Clarke book, Childhood's End. I've read that quite a number of times. I loved it. And basically when the aliens arrived, they wouldn't show themselves. They refused to show themselves because people weren't ready, as you were stating.
Right.
Because they look like the devil.
There you go. Yes,
so
exactly.
Your point is quite a good, valid point. Yeah, we weren't ready. So
I think it's also...
Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's also like when on here on this planet, that's where we are. When you've seen something that's been created, so bizarre, and I remembered that there have been a few things that I've looked at that I couldn't understand what it was. It shocked me. Like I couldn't translate what I'm looking at because it was so different. And it's only because it's in our reality that when you get to feel it and to see it and to see how it works, that then there becomes kind of like there's an acceptance of that. So I think for us, when we are touched by this singularity, when it comes forward to us, it is possible that because we translate only with what we understand is reality, that you're right, that there is a part of the mind that shuts down, that we're not seeing it for what it really represents. And I think the idea as well that all of this is all interconnected in terms of us. And of course, this is why ufology has remained stagnated for so many decades, because we've been putting them in little boxes and not allowing for any form of other alternative debate to enter into the arena. No, UFOs are physical craft. They're coming from a physical planet. And cryptids are creatures that are on the earth plane, that are hidden in the mountains somewhere. And thus it goes on. But it seems to me that through the way that we translate the information, the phenomena is there to remind us that it exists, it is real, and eludes us. And the other thing that's interesting here is that our system that we serve, that is meant to be there to protect the citizens, to be honest and open to the citizens, well, that's a laugh, isn't it? We know that there has been a systematic program to deflect any belief or understanding that this phenomena is real. Now, that is interesting because I believe that the reason, there's one of two reasons here. Either the system is protecting us from a terrible truth, or it could be possible that the system does not know how to control this phenomena and has thus created this media circus that people have translated in their terms of seeing a UFO and kind of like getting the idea of what's going to happen. So I understand that when the phenomena actually presents itself in its rawest form, at that point the person goes through some kind of shock or trauma in most cases because they're not able to translate what is going on. Absolutely, totally agree with you there, Brandon, totally.
Yeah, because it's easier to see an owl in the woods than it is a gray standing there. So maybe you say, oh, there's a gray, but that can't be right. And then you shake it off. And mentally, when you look back, now you've replaced that thing in your mind and your vision, what you're looking at. Now it's an owl. And that alien is just like, hi, how you doing? And it's like, oh, no, you're an owl to me right now. It's like, oh, you don't have to do that. I'm actually not going to hurt you at all. And it's like, no, you're an owl. I got to go. But it's interesting, too, that these traumas that occur fragment over. And your mind is so interesting because it compartmentalizes that over here.
Yes.
And then when you return back to baseline from that hypersensitive, excited, traumatic state, then you don't have any awareness of it. But it's so interesting also that it's accessible to people that go into hypnotic regressions. There's,
yes.
You know, and you hear this in crime cases, awful stuff, like a girl was molested by somebody, like raped or something, but she didn't remember it. So she kept hanging out with him for a long time after that. Had no memory of it whatsoever, but it's because when the thing happened, she couldn't understand what was happening. He was such a trusted, loving family member to them or something, and whenever he did what he did, it didn't make any sense to her, so she split off into something else so that it could happen in this world, and that way, whenever she returned to a world that she could wrap her mind around, that event wasn't in that world because they don't coexist. It's this traumatic just shock to your system, and then your mind just does whatever it can, you know? And our minds do this all the time with pattern recognition, with your reticular activating system. I mean, it fills in the blanks of all kinds of shit. Your mind omits the end of your nose because it knows that you don't need to see it, but you can see it, but your mind will omit it for you. That's crazy to me. All right, boys, I want to ask you about one more thing, and we're going to cap on this, but don't hang up yet, if you don't mind. And thank you guys again so much. All the ways to find you, all your phenomenal work, your website, your show, everything is going to be located down there in the show description. But before we go, I want to talk to you guys about what you think about the possibility of a fake alien invasion, this Project Bluebeam coming about. We're seeing, you know, like that airspace around NORAD just get completely locked down, and then a bunch of incoming and outgoing planes from a certain area in Alaska were told that they couldn't fly there, and everything was shut down and derailed. And then allegedly, the Army shot down or Air Force shot down a UFO on the 10th of this month. So you see this being put in your face in the media. So what do you guys think about all this?
Well, that's very interesting because I was talking to a good friend today who brought that UFO case just recently to my attention this very day. And I've heard this on many occasions where the system will orchestrate a fake alien invasion and that they will save the day, and that, you know, that whatever super force is responsible behind the saving of the human race, there's an alternative reason of why it's being done. Some people have speculated that the system that we serve makes out the aliens are evil, and when the really good ones are wanting to come in and perhaps change the way that we as a species will evolve. That is a very distinct possibility. And we have to understand that, I'm sorry, the system we serve is corrupt. There is a cancer inside it, and it has done nothing but lie to the people and orchestrated and molded this whole UFO phenomena into something of a circus act. Oh, they're evil, they're bad. Well, and then of course we all get hooked into that because of our experiences, and it gets even more multi-complex because of people believing that it's the military that's really using the UFO subject to kidnap someone, and they're really behind it. So there's no transparency. The waters have been muddied, but I'm not sure how they're going to pull that off. I don't know what is the agenda behind it, only that it would only perhaps serve the elite, those few in the top rank of society. So I have heard this several times through the whisperings of down the corridors of this alleged faked alien invasion. Could they put it off? Well, let's just put it this way. There are certain historical factors that have occurred that the people have seen one thing of, and when there's some investigations, intense investigations, telling you something entirely different. And those people, those scientists, with a truly traumatic event that occurred in your great country, with three buildings.
Waco, 9/11, Ruby Ridge. There's a lot of them where the official story didn't match up to what really went down. But I think that
there was allegedly holographic technology that could have been utilized with that. So could they pull it off? Well, it's anyone's guess.
I'll put it simply. I don't see why not. A contrived alien invasion is quite possible.
Might as well.
You've got to understand. It can only be for one reason: to promote fear and to promote control.
Yeah. But Brendan, they've given me and Ronnie the grey suits for us to wear. Awesome. We've been signed up for it. So
good. Come scoop me up in the UFO. When you guys finally scrape the swastika off the side, come scoop me up, and we'll go for a ride in that thing. That'd be awesome.
I wouldn't put it past them. Actually, I wouldn't put it past them at all, because
it's just so interesting that it's so framed. Anytime it's talked about on the news, who are they interviewing? They're not interviewing scientists. They're interviewing military officials, and generals and Air Force pilots and stuff. They're not interviewing you. They're not talking to Jim Penniston. They're talking, and he was even military. So it's just really interesting whenever this is framed in the military light. And this is where, in my mind, just zoom out just one step from what's going on instead of looking at it. Zoom out to a few things in a row here, and you're like, oh, okay, got it. They're framing it through the military. We're locking down. They're framing them as a threat. They're already putting them into the minds and planting the seed that this is a threat, just like they did, by the way, Philip, with terrorism back in the day before 9/11. Right. They said, terror. And then there's this element of psychosemantic, back to Ronnie, what we were tying in here about maybe it's just all you anyway, that this element of predictive programming to where basically they can feed you enough things through movie and TV, and maybe the collective unconscious manifests it in reality. And so all these people walking around here, and I'll be honest with you, if a fake alien invasion does happen and it's due to someone manifesting it, it'll be UFO Twitter and the ufologists, because we're so geared up for it. We know, or we feel so strongly that the next thing that presents itself in the UFO phenomena that the media's got their cameras pointed towards is not going to be authentic. We all feel that. So perhaps we are going to be the ones that manifest it. And I'll say that it'd be awesome if we are going to go out and something really cool. I don't want some disease or some shit. That's boring. Let's go for the alien invasion. They're swooping around. They're laser beaming shit. They're cracking Earth in half. Let's go for it. Just metal guitar playing the whole time from loudspeakers you can't see. Just awesome, let's do it.
That's how we go with a smile, eh?
That's how we go, just with it. Yeah, just laughing our asses off. Okay, cool. All right, well, when that starts to happen, hopefully they give us some advance notice. You guys can fly over here and spend it in Texas with me. We'll just do a bunch of mushrooms and just smoke a bunch of weed and watch the aliens come in.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds awesome. That sounds wonderful.
Ronnie and Philip Kinsella, I can't thank you enough. Again, boys, you're dear to my heart. We have a lot of things to look forward to, only great things, actually. So we will be doing this again very, very soon. Gentlemen, all the ways to find you will be located down in the show notes. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Brandon. We're very honoured. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. An honour.
all the love in the world going to those two amazing Kinsella boys right there. All the ways, of course, to find them as well located down in the shows. They are phenomenal authors and sweethearts to boot. Thank you, boys. This was amazing. You'll be back very soon. While you guys are down in those show notes as well, check out our affiliate links. You have Food Force to Abundance. Get that freedom from fear on Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. If you would like to start your own podcast, Red Circle's who we host through, and that link is down there, and it reads, Start Your Own Podcast. Also, if you guys really want to level up in life in general, or you're done with the stagnancy like I was, I called Dewey Taylor of the Manifestors Guide and changed my life. You can do the same down there with the Manifestors Guide link. Also, if you type Expanding Reality, all caps, no spaces, at checkout as the promo code option, he sweetens the deal from there as well. Now, down in those very same show notes, guys, is expandingrealitypodcast.com, and it is expanding rapidly. We have all sorts of new stuff going on over there. Make sure that y'all go by and check it out. That is also where you can sign up to become an Expansive Insider. That's the best way to support the show. You get a bunch of cool bonus stuff in return for that, and we are absolutely grateful for everybody that has supported our mission, because this is a value exchange model, and we are a value for value system. So if you find it valuable, there's a link down there that reads support the mission, but taking us up on the Expansive Insider is a dope way to do it, guys. There's so many cool things going on over there. All right, so go out into this incredibly mysterious place, whatever the hell this thing is, and y'all pick up a piece of litter. Be nice to everybody that you come across. Of course, keep your eyes to the sky. You might be missing something dope that's happening overhead, and rather than looking at your phone or some shit. Also, go ahead and buy somebody in line around you a coffee or a meal. Something super small goes an incredibly far way in the collective, guys. Also, of course, while you are out there traversing this beautiful landscape of ours via vehicle, if you have somebody behind you wanting to pass, go ahead and scoot on over if you're in the left lane there, and then they'll be right by you, and then on you can go. And of course, out of everything else, guys, go into this incredibly mysterious and beautiful and amazing place, whatever the hell this thing is, and y'all just be good to one another. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, for engaging, and just being the coolest sons of bitches ever. We'll see you next time.